Welcome back to the channel, everybody. We're here for our 6th season of TNCBA's Chasing Ghost, and as we've been doing the last few years, we're going to kick things off by looking at the New Year's Day tournament that Snyder and I fished, the Icy Guides event, and we're going to break down practice and then break down what happened in the tournament. You know, me and Dad got out on the water for a couple days there leading up to the event, and for us, the practice was very, very tough. Me and Snyder always try to break things up where he focuses on something different than I do, and you know, his confidence this time of year is really throwing that fly, staying in that shallower portion of the water column, staying on the bank, and I spend a lot of my time scoping, just looking for that bite, seeing how we could maximize those two bites and how we could really mix them, or if we needed to just sell out to one, or what we needed to do. And this time of year, we've been spending a lot of time around marinas, especially early in the morning, and seeing how that bite goes. And on the first day of practice, Dad and I started out back in Friendship and really couldn't get anything going on back there. The bait wasn't back in the marina when we found them. They were more out in front of the marina, and really just couldn't get those fish to bite. So on that day one of practice that we were out there, we didn't really get any bites until later on in the day when we had made some adjustments, made some changes. This fish here was actually the best fish we had in practice that we found later on back around towards Obnob, and it was just two really high floaters that we were able to get to bite, get one of them to bite, and it was a 485, so a really good fish, but that bite just was not consistent. So the second day that we went out for practice, we actually started in Laurel where we eventually started the tournament, and the bait was loaded back in the dock, and bait will get in around these dock slips and get back in these marinas because of all the structure you have under the water, whether that be the big concrete blocks that they're tied off to, the cables that are there. But one thing that you'll notice here is we got these bites super early. I mean, it's barely daybreak, well before what the tournament would start on New Year's Day, which was 8 a.m. But we had a lot of bait in here. We got two bites really quickly, a decent bite of a 3.5. But after that, like, it was a struggle. And, you know, it's kind of overcast here in this situation, so we had a change in the conditions, and we had a little bit of wind, which you thought would have helped a little bit for what we were wanting to do. But it was just a slow struggle for us as far as the scoping bite goes. Now, Snyder had a couple days on the water as well, and he had a much better time with the fly. So going into the tournament day, as we get ready to switch here over to the tournament day, we plan to go into Laurel and start there first because that marina bite was dying pretty quickly. You probably had maybe an hour and a half tops. But one thing that was interesting is the bait was not back in the marina when we got started. So we still found some that were floating, some that were back in these slips that were willing to pull out or come out and chase that Kitech. And we were able to get a couple keepers in the boat quickly, and within that first hour and a half to 2 hours like we had planned on. And then we were going to go focus a little bit more on the fly and kind of hop back and forth and kind of mix the two techniques together. One thing that we were doing is we were switching up between a paddle tail and a straight tail. The Kitech that we always typically like is our go-to. Again, the head is going to be a 3/8 traditionally, and the color is Ghost Rainbow in that 2.8 Kitech. But really there was no, I wouldn't say they were just eating the paddle tail or eating the straight tail. I think we caught some fish on both. As far as the straight tail goes, the bite I get here after a while came on a mooch minnow and the Tennessee shad. But these first couple fish weren't big. We actually culled a couple of them out later, but the main thing was they just gave us some confidence, helped us to slow down. But again, we started out here in Laurel Marina looking for some fish on the scope, fish that were moving around, maybe chasing a little bit of bait, and that got us started and got us going. I ain't never seen one that painted up.
Look at the red on him. There's two right there in that middle that They hit it, and I just can't hook them. Oh look, he took the tail off.
Now, once we had caught a few fish and we felt like that marina bite was slowing down over there with the scoping piece, we didn't move far. We stayed back here in Laurel, but moved over towards the floating houses, an area that Snyder really loves to throw that fly. And as we're working the wall going in, he's fishing it out a little bit deeper, not putting it right on the bank, but focusing a little bit more out there in that, probably I would say 15-foot range. 10 to 20 will give it a little bit better range. So just a little bit deeper. And this here is actually our kicker fish for the day. It anchors our bag. It's big fish for the tournament. It's a little over 4.5 pounds, around 4 3/4. And you know, I know watching the video, there's plenty of things we're doing wrong here as far as trying to fight this fish. It's amazing that we actually even got it in with how bad we're trying to screw this up and get it off of there. But we managed to get the fish in, and that bite right there. Again, Snyder's already got confidence in that fly anyways, and he's throwing just a 1/8 ounce head. He hand ties these. There's minimal hair. You can't really see it here when I show it, but just a little bit of olive green craft hair, a little bit of orange craft hair. And, you know, that bite right there, again, just sent his confidence with that bait through the roof. He knew for the rest of the day, with that bite, we're going to get some more bites on the fly. We work in through these floating houses, and he ends up catching another one, which we fill out our limit back here, and we continue just to slow down and trust that process with that fly. And we'll mix in some scoping here in a little bit when we find some bait in the right places, but most of the places we were jumping around to, the priority was the fly from that point on.
He's in that rope. Okay, you got it? I was like, I could see the rope. He was right up here. Yes.
I do like that hook a lot more.
Yeah.
That's a sturdier.
Yeah, much sturdier. Threw in there 3 times. So that looks crazy.
Now, one thing that I really love are situations like what we have here where we can do both. We're moving down a bluff, and there's just tons of bait down this bluff. Snyder's able to throw the fly and work the bank, but I'm also able to keep an eye out there with the scope and see if there's any fish floating high running through those bait balls. And I managed to find one here, and this one I caught on the straight tail on that mooch minnow in the Tennessee shad color with a 3/8 ounce head. But again, my best luck with fish that were biting on the scope they were sitting up in that 15 to 20 foot range. And this one here didn't really help. I think it was actually probably about the same size as our smallest one. And then we end up catching another one on the scope right here. And all in all, that scope bite was much, much better on tournament day than it was in practice. They were committing so much better. You didn't have to try to force feed them. When they were coming up to it, most of the time they ate it. In practice, you were getting tons of those that would come up to it, maybe even bump it a little bit, and then go right back down. So we were able to mix the two really, really well and fill out our limit. And then after catching this on the scope, we made a couple runs to check a couple other areas. Nothing really materialized, so we ended up coming back into Laurel to throw the fly again to finish up. And I'm able to set the hook into a 3-pounder here, which upgrades us by about a 1/2 pound. And one of the biggest things is with fighting these fish back in this area is not getting in a hurry, not getting in a rush. And right here, the reel decides to back reel on me when I go to lift up on it. And I have to catch the line, so it gets a little bit ugly there. But again, the fly gave us our better quality fish. But again, we did balance it out. I think we weighed 3 fish from the fly, 2 fish from scoping with that Kitech and with that mooch minnow. But overall, we came in with 16 pounds, good enough for 5th on the day. That smallmouth that was 4 3/4 was good enough for big fish on the tournament. So a great start to the year. As we go into some of the Morristowns, we go into the club events.
Yeah, he's 3
We're going to kind of approach it the same way. You know, Snyder and I don't fish together for the club. Me and Dad do, but for the Morristowns, we're going to try to split things up when we can. And I take a little bit of a different approach to practice while he takes another approach, and just allow us to dial things in more quickly. It's a good balance between the two of us. We're going to have to work on our landing of fish and how we net them and stuff like that and get better at that. But overall, great day, fun time. Again, you can still get up there and catch fish up in the shallows with that fly and that approach. We also had a full moon here at this time, and that's also very helpful when you're going after that crawfish imitating bite with that fly and that olive and that orange. You guys, hope you've enjoyed it. Post any comments, questions down below, and we'll try to answer them for you. But hopefully we'll see y'all out on the water, and have a great year, guys.